Hi, it's Pastor Al here. Thought I'd change things up just a bit for today's kids' sermon. Yeah, we've been talking on a theme the last few Sundays. A few Sundays ago, we talked about how when we make mistakes, we know that we have a God who loves us, friends and parents who love us, and they're more than willing to forgive us for our mistakes. Last week, we mentioned that when we do make a mistake, and people forgive us, it's a good thing to say we're sorry because it's important for them to know that. The last thing I want to say kind of in this series is that, well, when you've made a mistake and somebody says they're sorry and you think they really mean it, they're not just saying it because they have to. One of the things you should do is forgive them. That's really important too. Let me show you a little video of someone who is willing to forgive after someone says they're sorry.
Hey, what's wrong? Are you mad at me? Did I do something to you? Why are you looking at me like that? Ralphie, are you mad at Mama? Oh, you're not even gonna look at me? You're not even gonna look at me? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you give me a kiss? You forgive me? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Ralphie. Oh, thank you, Ralphie.
Now, just because someone says they're sorry, you want to make sure they really mean it. It doesn't mean if you forgive them that what they did was okay or that maybe you shouldn't be just a little bit careful with them in the future. But if someone really is sorry for something that hurt you, and you really think they don't ever plan to do it again, and they've really learned and changed, then you really should forgive them. We have a great example of that in Jesus when, one of his closest friends, the Apostle Peter, does a terrible thing to him and feels really bad about it. And he's really sorry he did it. And Jesus goes ahead and forgives him because Jesus loves him so much. And because of that, Peter's a changed man and he does amazing things. I have a book that we actually have in our library here, in our kids' library, that you can borrow, that I'd like to let you listen to someone and watch someone's reading. It's a little long. If you really don't want to listen to it, and this is enough, that's okay. But I'm going to finish out our children's sermon today with someone doing a really good job of reading that book to you about Jesus forgiving Peter when he makes a really, really, really bad mistake.
The Friend Who Forgives, a true story about how Peter failed and Jesus forgave. Written by Dan DeWitt, illustrated by Catalina Echeverry. A long time ago, there was a man named Peter who was best friends with Jesus. Peter was a fisherman. He was strong and brave, but he often said the wrong thing. Do you ever talk before you think? That's what Peter did, again and again and again. Peter loved fish. In fact, one day he and Jesus had fish for breakfast. Fish for breakfast? That's weird. But we will save that part of the story until the end. On the day when Jesus first called Peter to follow him, can you guess what Peter was doing? That's right. Peter was fishing. Follow me and I will make you a fisher of men, Jesus told him. Can you imagine that? Peter fishing for men? Jesus explained that just as Peter liked to search for fish, Jesus had come to search for people who needed forgiveness. Peter loved being friends with Jesus. He saw Jesus do lots of amazing things. One time, Peter's mother-in-law was sick. Jesus healed her. Another time, Peter was about to drown in a storm. Jesus saved him. Slowly, Peter realized that Jesus was more than a friend. He was God. He would never let Peter down. But sometimes Peter let Jesus down. Like the time Jesus explained to his friends that he had to die on the cross, but that he would come back to life to offer forgiveness. All of you will run away. You're going to say you're not my friends, Jesus said. Peter spoke up right away. He did that a lot. I will never do that. But Jesus told him, before the rooster crows in the morning, you will say 3 times that you're not my friend. I would never do that. Jesus is my best friend, Peter thought. When soldiers came to take Jesus to the cross, Peter pulled out his sword to stop them. Put your sword away, Peter, Jesus said. My Father says this must happen. Jesus let the soldiers take him to a courtyard to stand trial. Peter followed from far away. Aren't you one of Jesus' friends? A young girl asked as she opened a gate for Peter to enter the courtyard. What do you think Peter said? No, I don't know Jesus. It was a cold night, so Peter walked over to a fire where some people were warming themselves. Aren't you one of Jesus' friends? Someone asked Peter. What do you think Peter said? No, I don't know Jesus. Then someone else stepped forward and looked closely at Peter. Yes, you are one of Jesus' friends, aren't you? He said. What do you think Peter said? No, I don't know Jesus. Right then, at that very moment, a rooster crowed. Jesus turned around and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said. Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you are not my friend. Peter was so sad. He knew he had failed Jesus again and again and again. He didn't just need to find other people who needed forgiving. He needed forgiving too. Peter felt terrible. He ran out of the courtyard and he cried and cried and cried. Peter had let his best friend down, and now it was too late because the soldiers had taken Jesus away to be killed. But Peter didn't stay sad because Jesus didn't stay dead. 3 days later was the first Easter Sunday when Jesus came back to life to offer people forgiveness. But would he forgive Peter for failing so badly? One day Jesus went looking for Peter. Where do you think Jesus found him? That's right. Peter and his friends were fishing. Jesus called to them from the beach. Peter jumped out of the boat into the water and rushed to the beach to see Jesus. And this is where Jesus and Peter had fish for breakfast. Fish for breakfast? That's weird. Peter was so happy to see Jesus alive. But would Jesus forgive him? Peter wasn't sure. Maybe Jesus wouldn't want to talk to him. Maybe Jesus wouldn't want to be friends with him. But yes, Jesus did want to talk to Peter, and yes, Jesus did want to forgive Peter. Wow! And since Peter had said he didn't know Jesus 3 times, Jesus gave Peter the chance to say 3 times, I love you, Jesus. That's how Peter became a forgiven fisher of men. Peter spent the rest of his life telling people about his best friend Jesus. He told them that if they put their trust in Jesus, he would forgive them again and again and again. That's because Jesus was Peter's best friend. He forgave him again and again and again. And if you trust in Jesus, he will forgive you too, again and again and again. Now, how do we know about the friend who forgives? Well, the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all tell us about Peter's exciting friendship with Jesus. But then Jesus was arrested, and Peter pretended 3 times that he didn't even know Jesus. Luke 22, verses 60 to 62. Then Jesus was killed on the cross, and it seemed like the end of everything. But Jesus didn't stay dead. Luke 24, verse 6. The last chapter in John's Gospel tells us that Jesus came to find Peter to forgive him. John 21, verses 1 through 19. 3 times Jesus asked, "Do you love me?" 3 times Peter answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." That's how Peter became a forgiven fisher of men. From then on, Peter told other people about Jesus and how they could be forgiven too, again and again and again. Acts 2 verses 38 and chapter 10 verse 43. Peter even wrote part of the Bible for us so that we can hear him telling us about the friend who forgives too. 1 Peter chapter 1 verses 18 through 21 and chapter 3 verse 18.
So I hope you've learned a little something today about how important it is when someone makes a mistake and is really sorry and asks you for forgiveness, that you go ahead and forgive them as long as you know that they really mean it. Because it's good for you inside your own heart to let go of anger and hurt that you might have. Because ultimately the only person that hurts is you. So thank you for joining me this Sunday. I hope you really loved the book. If you want to read it yourself or have someone read it to you, we have 1 copy in our kids' library. You're welcome to have someone come and borrow it for you. God bless. Bye-bye. We'll see you next Sunday.